I am so excited to be kicking off this conversation as we celebrate Black History Month. As you know, Black History Month, we are just amazed by so many figures that are rooted in our history, from Rosa Parks to Barack Obama to our first scientists. Like, there's so many people to highlight during Black History Month. But the coolest thing is being able to highlight people that are in your immediate circle. And for us at Stream, one of the things that we promise to ourselves is there are so many people creating history, and a lot of them are literally in our close circle. And so we wanted to highlight some of those people today, but not just Black history as a whole, specifically Black men. And that's Black men in STREAM industries. So science, technology, reading, engineering, arts, manufacturing, even entrepreneurship. You're going to hear from all of those people today. And I am so excited to bring in one of my friends to really host this conversation. I'm going to get out of the way because I am not a Black male. I'm not even a Black person, part of Next Gen that is a guy. So I had to bring in someone else that can do it and that is already doing so many amazing things. A part of the best generation, Generation Z. He is representing hard for us. And so I'm excited to bring him in. His name is Marquise Hill, or MJ Hill, or Real MJ Hill. You'll get the point later, but if you're not following him, make sure to follow him. He is a great speaker and just leader, part of our generation. So I'm going to go ahead, get out the way, turn it over to him. But Marquise, what's up?
How are you doing, Imani? Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
No, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of this, for agreeing to really lead us forward in this conversation. I am so excited to have you. And like I said, I'm about to get out the way because this is your show.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Of course.
How's everybody doing? My name is Marquise Hill, also known as Real MJ Hill on social media, and I'm 17 years old. I'm in my senior year of high school. I'm a motivational speaker, an author, and an entrepreneur. And I feel my entire purpose with just everything I'm doing is just motivating and uplifting my generation and younger just to love themselves and like to really believe in themselves and to bring out the genius that lies within them. And when Nehemiah reached out to me for this opportunity just to be a part of this powerful conversation, I had to, because like Nehemiah was saying, there's so many people in the Black community, definitely a lot of Black men who are making a huge change, who are just changing so many lives and impacting so many lives. So I'm excited to be a part of Black Stream. So to get it started off, I'm pretty sure we have everybody on. But just to get it started off, we can go, whoever wants to go first. But can you just like start off 2 minutes, just kind of telling everybody, who you are, why you're a part of this conversation, and then we can go from there.
Sorry about that. Well, I guess I'll go first since I had such a dramatic entrance with my camera falling. But my name is Jamal Yarbrough. I'm an engineering student at the University of Southern California in the School of Viterbi Engineering for Electrical and Computer Engineering. I've worked with Nehemiah in the past, participating in the Stream Foundation and just promoting science and engineering to young African American students and just students in general. The possibility of STEM as an outlet, but mainly I like to target African American students and students from impoverished areas and in areas that have been like impacted by social injustices and the criminal justice system. And a lot of us were raised up without fathers and stuff like that. So when I heard of the Stream Foundation, it was amazing to me, because I also have a nonprofit organization based on STEM education for prisoners and people with low-level offenses, to kind of give them that avenue of mathematics and science as an avenue to make a change in their life, regardless of if they can get hired or not when they get out. And so I'm just happy to be here today and to speak and represent and to be amongst such an amazing panel that I've heard so much about. It's so nice to meet all of you guys. So thank you.
That was powerful. That was powerful. And then, Mr. Brian, do you want to go next?
Sure. I'll jump in. I'll jump in the deep pool here. So, good evening, everybody. Good evening, panelists. MJ, My name is Brian Fisher. I am a subcontract program manager with Lockheed Martin Rotary Emission Systems. So long title, but I've been the past 20 years. I've been working with the largest defense contractor in the world, right? And you talk about STEM and the things that's going on in this space. I'm probably, I was born a geek, right? But through the trials and tribulations of everything that I've done, I've learned that there's a real need to pay it forward. And I didn't get here by my intelligence alone. It was standing on the shoulders of the folks that came before me. And I anticipate having folks stand on the shoulders to take this mission higher and deeper than it's ever gone before. So Niamani, we go way back. We go back in the day. And I've just been inspired by everything that she's done and what Stream means to my community and what it means, the power that it serves to us as a people in moving the needle forward towards equality and diversity. So I'll get off my soapbox.
That's so powerful. And Mr. Maynard, can you go next?
Yes. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. Awesome to be on this panel. My name is Maynard Okereke, also known as the Hip Hop MD. I have a background in civil environmental engineering, but I work now as a science communicator with my platform Hip Hop Science, where I use music, entertainment, and comedy as tools to educate on a wide variety of scientific topics. And it really came a roundabout way just from my unique background of experiences. Born a nerd myself, always been into science and education and tech, which is why I ended up pursuing engineering. But I was also an entertainer at heart, musician, artist, actor. Those were always passions of mine. And I never really found a way to be able to seamlessly do both of them. And I always kind of felt in some way excluded from both areas because of my unique passions and skill sets. And the Hip Hop Science platform really came from that, from kind of finding a way to be able to express my true authentic self and always wanting to find a way to be able to give back, and seeing a lot of other Black students, a lot of other Black professionals having similar shared experiences of not feeling wanted in similar spaces, not feeling included in certain spaces, and always finding that they always had to kind of shun one of their sides away and not really be able to bring their true self to the table. And having those experiences as a professional, working as an engineer for a number of years, and always finding myself not feeling like I was truly wanted in certain spaces. That's really how the Hip Hop Science platform came about, is to really be able to now showcase that science is in everything, showcase the wonders of science, spark curiosity, especially in our youth, and be voiced and be representation, because at the end of the day, representation matters. If you don't see someone that looks like you doing something in your field, it doesn't speak to you and you don't feel like you could be an advocate for it and be a participant in it. And so I try to bridge that gap between music, entertainment, and science, and really showcase that science is wonderful and that we as Black men, Black people in general, are needed and wanted in these spaces. And so that's really what I do now at my science platform. A lot of social media content, but I do a lot of presentations, keynotes, workshops with schools, students, and educators alike on really why it's important to showcase and spark excitement in STEM.
This is, for one, Mr. Jamal, you about to go right after this, but you all are just inspiring me. Like you just said, you guys are just great representations of just like what's possible for like so many of us young Black boys out here. So that's all I'm gonna say. But y'all are just blowing me away right now. So Mr. Jamal, you can go now.
Yo, appreciate that, brother. It's a real pleasure. Jamal Hill, team swimmer. Competed in the last games in Tokyo, was able to win a bronze medal. And I'm also the founder of the Swim Uphill Foundation. Our mission at the foundation, here how to swim all around the world, focusing on low and middle income primarily. That's pretty much, who drowns. And, just your neighborhood hustler, living good, walking with faith panel.
Oh man, that's so amazing. And one thing that like I see is you guys are role models, not only for me, and I just met you all, but I know just for so many others, you know, like through social media, just through what you guys are doing in the world. You guys are role models for just so many young Black boys, so many people in the world. So one thing I want to ask is like, what role has Black history played just in your education and also in your career, with just like helping you become who you are today?
I definitely could speak on that. If y'all don't mind me going first on this, but just from research from engineering, when I first initially like when I made that thought that I'm going to take this engineering thing serious, I kind of started to research engineers that may have been of my ethnicity and exist in the field. And so it took me way back to Granville Woods and Otis Boynton. And Granville Woods was a self-taught engineer, and he was also an electrical engineer. And I was like, self-taught. That's exactly how I feel. I feel self-taught, and I feel sometimes that I have to be self-motivated, and just have that self-esteem for myself. So when I knew that other people existed in the field, that ignited something in me that was just like the unrelenting, and I just started to go forward. Uh, I lost my father to the prison system, and I lost well, my mom's still alive, but she's kind of just in like the the bad part of existing as a Black woman on your own with 6 children and no father figure. So she kind of took the route of drugs and stuff to alleviate that pain. But I kind of like refused to let that be the epitome of the Yarborough legacy, the would be legacy if things weren't unbalanced in society. So just finding people who are in the field of electrical engineering and meeting people from Lockheed Martin who look like me, and seeing young motivational speakers like you at 17 motivating people, that's kind of what gets me uh, going to like to pursue my dream in engineering and to believe that I can actually do it. So
And one thing I see is like,
what's
oh no, you got it, Mr. Jamal.
for sure. I was just gonna say, time, brother. Just remind me, your name was. Finished speaking with the bow tie.
my name is Jamal Yarbrough. Yeah.
All right, I thought so. All right, for sure. But nah, one thing he spoke about, man, he spoke about story for number one, man, respect. But he spoke about legacy. And that original question, Black History Month. You know, it's just like this reminder of legacy. You know, it's like especially for me in swimming, even just just like Black people in the right, you know, especially in the context and you know this weird narrative now that with swim, when it's like from a historical context, you know, the African diaspora, you know, these are the people who are the best swimmers in the world for literally most of history. South Africa, all the Caribbean islands, all the da da da, all the da da da, all the da da da, all the da da da. You know what I mean? It's powerful, man. Just because I think again, it's a long legacy. Like it's so many stories. It's such a rich lineage of skill and talent and love and exploration and invention. And just a good reminder of that for me. So when you say legacy, man, that's what it made me think about, Jamal.
And Mr. Brian, you can follow.
Oh man. So I am what am I? I'm Gen X, right? So coming from humble beginnings, South Florida, um, moving past the era of integration, integrating into the school systems, right? They wanted us to be integrated, and I had stories of my parents not having going to college, right? And they were built on raising kids who will be educated, right? Because educated in their mind, it was ingrained in me as a young man that education was not only the key to freedom, right? Financial freedom, or it had the power to change any trajectory you were on. You know, Jamal talked about being a trailblazer, doing things differently as a swimmer, doing things we had never done. I was always challenged to go against the grain and be better than those that came before me, right? And that was ingrained in me. That was the history behind what was going on in my life, right? I tend to think like my mom. I can remember my mom saying, or going to vote, and you know, she actually had the right to vote during her lifetime, right? In that era, right, when they were having these voting laws and that's in her lifetime, right? That's I'm watching this right before me, and didn't dawn on me till I became adult. Like, okay, we've come a long way. We got a long way to go. And in order for us to do that, we need to be educated about it, right? So I stood on that platform, like, okay, let me go get this. Let me be hungry for it, because the chances of me becoming the next uh, Carolina quarterback is slim to none. But if I put myself, ingrain myself in these studies and getting this education, the opportunities, just percentage wise, is so much greater, right? So that's the history. That's Black History 101. That we've come so far. We got a long ways to go, and I need to be a part of something, or else I'm gonna fall for anything. So yeah, that's education is key, brother.
100%.
Yeah, I totally agree. Everybody's sentiments all ring true. I think for me, I had a lot of unique cultural experiences that really shaped my identity and my transition and entrance really into STEM fields in general. I'm half Nigerian, half Cameroonian, and I was raised in Cameroon. And so coming here when I was young and being introduced, like my parents' mindset was always, you're either to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer. That was it. And everybody that knows African parents, right? That's the mentality. And so education for me was always the escape. That was always the goal. That was always, there was really no choice. And that really came from my parents immigrating here to the country and wanting for me to have a better life than they did. And so I always came in with that mantra of like, I have to be great. I have to aim for greatness. And so having that experience and then getting into school, and then seeing a lot of like my African-American peers, having different difficulties, and then realizing, obviously these different pitfalls and navigating through these different careers. And it really took me getting involved in different programs like NSBE, National Society of Black Engineers, and seeing other people that look like me to where I'm like, okay, this actually speaks to me. There's actually an opportunity for me to be able to navigate a lane in these spaces. And I really found that along that career trajectory and along that educational path, it was always me finding like-minded voices that really opened the doors and really shaped and molded my ability to really feel more secure in my position. And especially now that I'm doing science communication work, I was doing this work with my hip hop science platform for years, right? Really kind of showcasing why science is cool, why students need to get involved in this. And I felt like I was just out there doing it on my own, right? I didn't really see other people that looked like me doing it. And then I slowly started to find a collective community of other science communicators that were Black men, Black women, minorities in general, that are really highlighting the need for representation and showcasing why diversity in STEM is important. And it really hit right with this wave of really everybody unanimously, especially within a lot of tech businesses, a lot of different platforms and organizations and schools, really understanding and really seeing that there was a lack of diversity, particularly in STEM, and really trying to find ways to be able to support those voices. And Jamal, your story rings true as well. I grew up never swimming, right? It's like it wasn't like I was scared of water, but like that was just something I was never introduced to, right? I didn't take swim courses or anything like that growing up. I played basketball, football, ran track, you know what I'm saying? But but being involved in the water was never something that was introduced to me. And so I grew up never having experienced swimming and never really having a need to swim, right? But as I continued to fall more and more in love with science, I was always a wildlife nerd, always loved the ocean, always loved marine science. And I always had a dream one day of scuba diving. And it wasn't until I did a month-long trip out at sea a year and a half ago that really introduced me to so many different wonders of oceanography and different things like that. And after that, I was actually blessed with that organization I went with. They supported some swim instructions for me, and so I learned to swim over a period of 5 months, and I got scuba certified last January. And so I've been out doing scuba trips and doing deep dives and everything like that. That's opened up a whole that's opened up a whole new world, because I've been able to find I've been able to find other, Black people that are doing marine biology work, and people in the Caribbean that are doing some incredible work that I'm going to be doing some partnerships with. And it's really showcases how just finding those opportunities and finding that support system is so important and can elevate you into so many different things. And now I'm open and exposed to a whole new world that before, if I had never really taken that curious step or taken that leap of faith into, that I never would have been exposed to. And so whenever I hear stories like yours, saying especially Black swimmers, to me, that's so inspirational, because I always love finding space not represented in and seeing how people were able to navigate those spaces and bringing up the history element of it, right? Of we were the original swimmers, right? That's ingrained within our culture and ingrained in our history and our background. And even things like foraging, right? Like we were the original foragers living off the earth and all these different things, these skill sets that we lost over generations because they were sucked out of us, right? Now finding ways to be able to be reintroduced into those things are so important. And understanding that culture and understanding that background and how we were and where we are now and how we got there is so important, and really showcasing your ability to now elevate in those spaces as well too. So to me, that's really how Black history is really defined and helped shape a lot of the work that I do now.
Man, being a part of this conversation, like I'm blessed to be here, right? Like you guys are just like pouring a lot into like whoever has the opportunity to listen to this. And like one thing that I found in common with like a lot of your stories was you guys faced adversity, right? Like you guys had to go through obstacles. Guys had to go against the grain, right? Even when it wasn't the popular thing to do. And like one question, and I don't think this is a question that we actually have in here, but like, what was your motivation? Like, how did you stay consistent? Because what you guys are doing, it's not easy, right? But I know like a lot of people that you're inspiring, that you're motivated, want to do it too. So like, what was like some ways that you guys stay motivated and like y'all kept persevering like through some of those obstacles y'all had to go through?
And you know what? I think Menard touched on it a little bit. It's not, and even Jamal, it's not always a popular thing in the culture, right? To be the nerd or to go against the grain. Maybe you don't want to put everything into the athletics basket. It's there was I could say it was adversity me going to high school and taking advanced placement classes because my boys didn't do it, right? And you at that point where you want to be cool, you want to be accepted in your community and your culture, but there's more to it than that, right? And you gotta differentiate between, okay, is it all about being cool or being or assimilating into our own culture, right? There's an assimilation process right there. Or do I go against the grain and aspire to do something different? Do I go out and hit the ball every day, or do I play with this chemistry set? I mean, literally, that's the decision you making, right? Am I going to take these computer classes that nobody in there looks like me, but I like it? And so what? Nobody looks like me, and my friends don't do the same things I do. I still get talked about that today, when, in these spaces with people that I've grown up with. You know what, B? You did your own thing, right? You weren't worried about how you were perceived. One thing, I couldn't go home with these bad grades, and I couldn't go home saying I'm taking these basic classes because it's the easy way. I had responsibilities. I had accountability partners who were my parents. So I didn't have, I think Menard said he didn't have a choice, right? But at the same time, you want to fit in to all these communities. You want to be the cool one. You want to be the one that it's hard to go against the grain. So there's some courage in all of these panelists doing what they did, right? Finding that courage to go maybe against the grain, to maybe go against, as they say, the culture. There's some courage in that, right? MJ, you got it. If you got that thing where you have that energy in you that's driving you, and I think we all have it. It's a matter of how we tap into it. We've all been tapped one way or another to find it. I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh yeah, it takes a special person to have. No, man, we all have that fire in us. Is it stoked by your parents? Is it stoked by a teacher that inspired? Is that fire stoked? We are all out here trying to stoke these fires in these folks so they don't have to go necessarily with the grain, or you can still be a part of the culture, but you know there's opportunity here, and it's way larger than the path that you might be on. So find that fire. All right.
If I could just like step in that and like continue on to what Mr. Bryan was saying about motivation. It really is something that just comes from places that you don't really expect it to. And MJ, like you're so motivational to me right now. You're the most influential person on this panel because of what you're doing, how you're presenting yourself and allowing us to tell our stories of what we've been through and what we've gone through. But like Mr. Bryan was saying, I mean, in our communities, at least for me, growing up in my community, I was born and raised in Southern California, born in Hollywood, raised in the Valley. I grew up in Pacoima around a bunch of gang members. But nobody was really telling me, like, you can't go to school or knocking books out of my hand and stuff like that. It was more kind of like I could hang out with the people in my community and from gangs and stuff like that, but that just wasn't my forte. It didn't trap me and capture me like science and engineering did. I was always building stuff. I got in trouble by my mom because I took all the wheels off of all of the trash cans that you bring to the street. You bring the trash cans to the street and stuff. You need the wheels to do that. I took the wheels off of all the trash cans, built a go-kart out of those wheels that I took from it, and made it work with minimal tools. And I just knew I was a builder. I knew I was an engineer. And when I was going to school, even though I went back as a later student, and even now to this day, it still affects me being like the oldest student in my class, the darkest student in my class, and the student with the funniest shaped head in my class. So there's a bunch of pressure on me, just like to feel like that I don't fit and I don't belong. So my motivation almost comes from a battle within myself of discouraging my own self. So it's like every day I'm telling myself that I belong there. There's nobody telling me that I don't belong in these classes. There's no one telling me that I can't go to school. But when I get excited and motivated to go forward with these things, it's myself telling myself that I don't belong there because no one there looks like me. And so motivation for me is kind of like a battle against myself to stay like driven and be like, no, Jamal, that's just your subconscious talking to you. That's the back of your head talking to you, telling that you don't belong here. Sometimes we have to start late. Sometimes we have to start from beginnings that other students don't start from and other people don't start from. But we owe it to ourselves as a community to show that we're exceptional. Just like the hip hop scientist was saying, and just like Jamal, if there's two Jamals here, and so every time y'all say Jamal, I'm like, oh, they're talking about me, and they'd be like, no, not you, Jamal, not yet. But shout out to Jamal, and shout out for the hip hop scientist for getting his scuba license, because I just got scuba certified too, and got the oyster shell swimsuit, and I mean the bodysuit. I grew up on a skateboard and kick flipping and all that stuff. So like it's within us to I think overall we're all human beings, and it doesn't really matter the color or the race. People put that on us as a way to like gain power and control in society, but we all want the same things in life. We all want to be married. We all want to have children, no one that I know just wakes up like, I'm going to commit crime today and do something stupid today to put myself in prison. I don't think we actually want to do that. We don't want to do bad things. We want to do good things. But for us, it's harder because we didn't have a stance in society. So I get motivated just off of seeing people like you who are courageous enough to follow your dreams. And when we find ourselves in those situations where we are the only, and we can continue to go, it just encourages me even more. And just to be on this panel with just a beautiful group of people that look like me is medicine for me, you guys.
That's
Truly.
blessed, yo. Yeah, that's so many amazing things that have been said, right? From motivation to, and it's actually, I throw my hat in here too. I'm a pro swimmer, right? But I just got my scuba cert last year too. So now we all together with no pressure to the rest of y'all on the call, but it's 3 of us out here. That's but no, in all seriousness, it's actually pretty funny, right? So when I was, my uncles were engineers and scientists, and so every Saturday I went to math and science school with Caltech Dominguez Hills every Saturday from like 2nd grade all the way to like 11th grade. He worked at JPL laboratories, things like that. And before I actually made the transition, I studied physics in college. So, you know, STEM, math and science has always been up. And it's interesting, right? Because I'm kind of like, I came up in that, and you know, there's enjoy it. It helps like life just be easier, you know, just because you know about more things. But it's good, you know, it makes life easier. But I realized for me, it was like, well, but I really love swimming. Maybe I should just try and make that my career, right? So, and I think sometimes when it comes down to motivation for me, like, it's not about something being smart. It's just about like, what's the risk to this, right? So for me, I'm in college in my 20s. I've been swimming for 20 years of my life at this point already. So it's like, risking by just saying, let me give this all I got while I can still do it, right? And if it don't, anyway. So, you know, like that's a pretty sensible risk, and to lose way more just by not even attempting it, not even getting up and showing up, you know. And so sometimes like showing up is half the battle, and then it gets like muddy, you know. Oh, and this is coming from arguably the 3rd fastest swimmer in the world a year ago, but it's like, dude, there's a lot of power in just showing up. Like, you're there, obviously, you're gonna be intentional. I don't show up to practice 100% every day, physically, 100% mentally, not always 100% spiritually, but I'm always showing up 100% what it is that I have at my disposal that day. Right? I'm always coming in like, it ain't world over today. I just need to get 1% better. You know, and I just kind of, that demystified me when it comes to motivation.
That's awesome. That's awesome. We got 3 scuba certified divers here. We got to plan a trip sometime. That's our next goal. I love that.
All right.
But yeah. I have this quote that I always follow. When you find your passion, it becomes your purpose, and you can no longer be passive. And for me, that quote has like driven me in so many different areas throughout my career. And I really think for me, just really keep it simple, my motivation is always the unknown. I've always been that person that I question everything, always want to know why. And for me, that curiosity and having that curiosity and maintaining that throughout from a kid throughout my adulthood has really been what's kept me invested in wanting to do more and wanting to support others and give back, because I start realizing all the opportunities that I, you know, either missed out on earlier on, or different things that people are doing now that people are excelling in, you know, like we just talked about diving, right? And just now being scuba certified, I'm upset that I wasn't scuba certified when I was, 12, 13 years old, right? Because as part of our group, we had some teenagers in there that were getting certified, and I was like, man, if I had gotten certified at that age, like all the different possibilities that could have opened up and explorations I could have gone on. So every step of different things that I've been able to do, that I've been passionate about, that I've asked questions about, I realize there's so many opportunities that can be afforded within those. And really that unknown is really what keeps me driving and what keeps me going. And also wanting to be able to pass that on to others so that they don't have to wait and miss out on opportunities, so they can see what's right in front of them and see what the possibilities are. And really expanding that mindset, expanding and invoking that curiosity, especially in our youth, to me is so important. And doing the work that I'm doing now as a science communicator, that's really the foundation of everything, is really sparking that curiosity and showcasing the opportunities that particularly the STEM or the STREAM fields hold, right? All the opportunities in different directions that we can go, and how they can provide you with so much more success in your future, and not only support yourself, but support your kids, your families, whatever endeavors that you have as an entrepreneur, as a student, whatever direction you're trying to go to. Really following your passions and really staying driven in your passions can open up so many doors for you. And so for me, that's really simply the motivation. That's what keeps me fueled on my day-to-day ventures and things that I do with my platform.
No, that is super powerful. And like one thing that related a lot to me as you all were talking, like Jamal was saying, Jamal was talking about, it wasn't even, outside noise that was actually, trying to tear him down. It was even his own mind, right? What he was thinking in himself, like that was doubting himself, right? That overthinking. That was one thing that I went through. Like when I had to put down basketball and I started doing motivational speaking, people were like, Marquise, what are you doing? Like, you play basketball. That's what you do. And people would try to put me in this box. And when I started doing motivational speaking, people were like, yo, Marquise, it wasn't the popular thing to do, right? So I was going against, other people's opinions. I was battling my own mind, like, dang, is this what I'm supposed to be doing, right? I was going against the grain. But one thing Jamal Hill said when he was talking about just like putting yourself out there, right? Showing up. Like, if I don't show up, if I don't at least try, I don't know how far this can go. I don't know what I'm capable of accomplishing. So like that was really powerful. And that actually leads me into like my next question. Just in like the spaces that you're in, what are some like fractures, right? Some holes that you guys see in the industry, in the space that you think, you're working to make an effort to close? And like how can like the community and other people, help close those gaps as well? And anybody can start.
I'll be happy to step up. Yeah, for sure. I'll be happy to step up first on this one. So I think I already kind of spoke about seeing our community. So just a little bit more about me, right? So I swim, we have, but even recently, just this year, I was appointed to pretty much a representative of the United Nations. As this representative, I've been learning a lot more about just global politics, the world, right? As it pertains to all people, which is really interesting, because there's like definitely a high level of privilege, right? With really what we know and care about is going on. But all that said, there's this list of big goals, right, for our working to achieve. And one of those goals is about health and well-being, and the micro goal and about mortality rates for children under 5. And I was speaking at this assembly, and I'm sharing to all these people, and I speak to this goal specifically, and you wouldn't believe, no one in that room, what the leading cause of death was for children under 5, and it's drowning. None of the top 10 leading causes of death for people pretty much all the way up to the age of 25. In the United States, it's low to middle income communities, and we already know how economic usually reflects in people's skin colors. That's helped us keep divided. So, as a result of this, communities, primarily a lot of Hispanic, a lot of brown communities, not to get into the shades of persons all the way to white people, because it is such an economic issue. Well, our foundation is, we're going around to 100 Southern California, this children's book, Sammy Swims, and we're pretty much visiting these schools. We're bringing, pretty much all these free books, like so many of you said, right? The way out of poverty is education, right? So promoting reading, and then I come in, I speak to these kids for swim education, of course, about disability awareness, being a Paralympic athlete, and the differences, right, that do make us all different. And then from there, the kids will get a chance to have this spring, summer, fall. So that's the whole that we see. That's one way we just here in Southern California. But you know, we got programs all over the country and the world. So get connected with us. Swim Uphill, swimuphill.org, and you can find it, and you know, you can definitely be put to work. Don't worry, we got a spot for you.
Jamal, I'll take it right from here. Since I was quick on the gun, I have like so much to say, and with such a like an awesome like panel, it's easy to like say a bunch of things. But like thank you for just doing the things that you're doing in swimming and just breaking barriers. And that's where I see the holes in the industry at. It's from people in our community feeling like they actually fit in society when they don't have the actual tools that they see a lot of other communities kind of like, I guess, blessed with or have innately. And for me, that's what I think the main hole in the industry is, in all industries, and whether it be engineering or in the Olympics or in whatever we choose to do, we have to like notice that we have to come into the industry at different times. Like I'm what, like I said, I'm not only am like the darkest complexion student in my class, but I'm also the oldest, and we have to being that we're from we come from a deficit, and we're trying to catch up with society and fit in. So we have to do that are not like customary or normal. We have to go back to school late. We have to get our kids in school early if we can, and we have to do things that we don't necessarily even feel equipped or adept to do or have the capacity to do, but we definitely do. And we have to, like, to fill the holes in the industry, we have to start to come into schools and to our motivations and our passions later. Like you were saying, MJ, Marquise, you're an awesome young man. I don't know who's told you lately, but to break the basketball cycle and then go into motivational speaking, and then even if you wanted to break it from motivational speaking and go back to school, and even if you wanted to break school and go be an entrepreneur, these are the ways that we have to think. I mean, society is kind of trying to balance things out as far as racism and social injustice goes. I can't deny that society is moving in that way. I mean, it took a long time, but imagine what our ancestors went through, and then the people right after our ancestors, next generation, they had to go through a bunch of like pain and social injustice, and it just gets exponentially worsened as we go back in time. And right now it's getting better, but nobody's telling us that we can't do these things anymore. So now it's all about a pride thing and a humility thing, and we have to sit in these classes and be the oldest student. We have to go into the Olympics, and even if it's the Paralympics or however we can get in, we have to change our motivations and we have to see the way we conceive society. I may not be I'm probably not going to be the best basketball player in the world, even though I could ball up all of my friends. I probably should go the motivational speaker route, or maybe I should go back to school or join my father's business or whatever it may be. We have to be adaptable and adjustable and forgiving. As hard as that is, that's probably one of the hardest things for me. I was actually talking to my sister about this, and it goes back and just into a lot of things to where I look at society, and I'm telling my sister, I'm like, we in order to move forward, you have to, as hard as it is, we have to let go of a lot of the things that we were hurt by. We were hurt by a lot of things in society, but we definitely have the potential to become a strong, great factor in society once we open up and start to follow our passions. And that's where we're going to fill the holes in industry and actually become a factor when we start to move forward with the way that we change our thoughts and how we can get successful. It happens kind of instantaneously, and we have to be able to adapt and adjust and fit into society and beat those negative energies out of our head and just continue to go forward. And we'll fill every hole in any industry and be a factor in this on this planet just like everyone else is.
That's cool. That's cool. So I want to take a moment. You know, all of you guys are doing y'all diving thing. Yeah. I'm joking, but I've been with Lockheed 20 years. I've worked on F-22, F-35, F-16 systems. I worked on air mobility C-130s. Early in my career, I met one of the first African American F-22 pilots, and I think at the time he might have been the only Black F-22 pilot. And dude was just like so cool. It blew me away, right? I was like, that is impressive, right? I knew that the system that I was a part of creating, that is defending the freedom of this country, I had some part in it, right? It inspired me to get my pilot's license. So you guys are diving deep. I am up in the sky because that's something I always wanted to do. I got 20 hours. I got my 20-hour certification. Now I have about 200 hours, so I can officially be a private pilot. But I say that, you know, Jamal, it resonates with me. I was I recently attended a conference where Dr. Harold Martin was lecturing. And Dr. Martin is the chancellor of North Carolina A&T, which is HBCU here on the East Coast in North Carolina. And he was discussing how institutions of higher learning have to invigorate growth in the educational pipeline. Jamal, I think you were just talking about this educational pipeline. And Jamal, too, you were talking about the pipeline of education, right? It reaches all the way back to elementary school, and we have to keep that pipeline of education filled, right? STEM isn't going anywhere. STEM is the future of where we go as a people, where the nation goes, where the country goes, where the world goes, right? Everything, it's a foundation of growth in STEM. And you all know there's a disparity in our educational system, right? The systems that are in place in this country were not developed to support us, right? They say that all these systems are in place here and it's free, but these systems, the foundation of these systems systemically are not there to support us. So we have to do that ourselves. In our communities, we have to continue to fill those gaps. I think the question was, are you still finding fractures in this space? We have to continue to fill these gaps where these disparities are. You panelists, you MJ, are helping to fill those gaps. We've done it for decades, right? And we have to continue to do it, right? The imagination that you guys are creating to find new ways of filling these gaps, whether it's linking athletics to education, whether it's linking hip hop and popular culture to making it be cool to be smart. It's cool to be smart, right? This forum is a great example of a reimagined way to inspire the future generations to do the things that we need us to do to fill these fractures. So I'll leave it right there.
Absolutely, totally agree with that. And yeah, when it comes to directly answer your question, yeah, are there fractures? Yes, there are tons of fractures, and we can talk for days and days about all the different pitfalls and limitations. But I'll just address a couple that I notice regularly in the work that I do. Obviously, doing a lot of STEM outreach work, working with youth and from K through 12 and beyond. I do everything from I've done workshops at Title I schools that have no funding to STEM schools that have labs and all sorts of equipment and funding for days. And the disparity gap is so wide, and it's for me, it's really humbling sometimes to go to school and you find educators that are working at these schools. They don't even know what possible resources they could even be able to provide for their students. They have no idea a concept of a STEM lab or a research lab in their school for their elementary school kids to be able to thrive in, right? And then you go to another school and they're like, yeah, they have a STEM lab, and they kind of almost take it for granted, right? Like they'll use it for other activities, because they have so many different options of different things that they can do. Really being able to find ways to be able to, fulfill that, close that disparity gap, but then also be able to find ways of funding and to be able to support a lot of that infrastructure. I do a lot of branded partnerships with a lot of companies, the Lockheed Martins of the world, and NASA and beyond, and Apple and Microsoft and so many different platforms that are doing the work in a way to be able to support STEM education. But a lot of that funding isn't going to the appropriate places where it needs to be diverted to, and the resources that a lot of those schools need and students need. And you touched on a little bit of it, Ryan, right? When you talk about science is cool. It's cool to be smart, right? We don't do enough work to really showcase that, right? We'll showcase the opportunities, the careers they can do, but we don't showcase the applications of why this is dope, where this can take you. Like you brought up the example of meeting another Black pilot there, right? But it took you being in that position and seeing that to finally showcase that, right? These are the voices, these are the people that we need to put at the forefront for our youth to be able to be inspired by and see those opportunities. Like we talk about the representation is key because we believe what we see. If you don't see somebody doing a dope profession, somebody, if you don't see a marine biologist out there diving, you don't really believe that it's possible. You don't see that the opportunity is there for you to excel. And so finding more ways to bring those voices to students to be able to showcase the applications of a lot of these fields that we do, because we focus so much on the education and the schooling and the systems, right? And the testing and the protocols and grades and all these different things. And a lot of times that in a way inhibits students because that's not the exciting part, right? Nobody really, we always talk, I know at least my generation, we always talked about, when am I ever going to use this, right? When am I going to ever do this? And a lot of times you don't use a lot of that stuff that you learned in class, but it gives you the tools that you need to be a critical thinker, which is, but by the time you get into these fields, there are so many different applications of these fields that are really the dope part about, especially the STEM professions, the things that you can do and the opportunities that can grow. And when you talk about sustainability and protecting the planet and space travel and all these different things, these are the elements that need to be highlighted, is how these are applicable to your life and how these can change and uplift your communities, how these can change and uplift the people around you and change the world. Really be able to showcase how these are applicable really goes a long way, and especially with our youth, in wanting to and sparking their curiosity and provoking them to get more involved, because now they know the why and they know the how, and then they can see the visual of it, and then it's easier for them to piece those elements together to really be able to want to make have a vested interest in it. And so for me, those are at least the small limitations that I think are feasible and that we all have a hand in, and that we can find ways to be able to foster the growth in those a lot more. And so it comes from that funding element, and then finding those voices and doing a better job of marketing and promoting where these fields can take you and the opportunities that these fields possess. I think that's a gap area that we can definitely fulfill, and that we need to do a lot more work and put a lot more effort into.
No, that's really great. Oh yeah,
I hate to interrupt you. I'll be like 2 seconds. And that's why I love Niamani so much, what she's doing with the Stream Foundation, because she allows that opportunity. She was just speaking about a hip hop scientist for highlighting the opportunities that we can actually take hold of and the things that we can go forward with. So shout out to Niamani and
yes, absolutely,
for hosting this platform, because this is amazing.
Mm-hmm. No, definitely huge shout out to Nehemiah. She's doing like amazing work with this. And like one thing that I heard, like, a couple of you mentioned is, like how, adamant you are about feeding this into the youth, right? Like I know for me, like everything I've learned, it came from like my father, my mother, older mentors that poured into me. So like that leads me into my next question. Like what would be like one piece of advice you would give to like the next generation, or, like specifically young Black boys who are trying to like navigate their way in the stream world?
Definitely could go first. Love to say something about that. The world is yours, and nobody's gonna deny you from it. And if you think that people are gonna deny you from it, know that you won't be standing in the battle alone. We are trying to make a comfortable, productive living as a Black society, and we're not opposing anyone or want anyone to get out of the way. For us, we just want room in this world, and we belong and we fit. And you never, as long as I'm in STEM, as long as I'm alive on this earth, on this planet Earth, moving forward, you're never going to be in a battle by yourself. Like I said, I started a nonprofit organization called the Broken STEM Foundation, where I'm going into prisons teaching STEM education. So when people get released, they don't feel alone, even further still. So it's never going to be a battle that you have to fight alone. Go get into school. Education, I hate to say that education isn't everything, but it's not, at least not the entire academic route that people traditionally take. But education and getting that degree is very important, and it nearly is everything, because we don't evolve without education. And I kind of think this is something that Mr. O'Brien was touching on. We need education, because education helps us evolve. We evolve through education, whether we learn how to start a fire from rubbing sticks together, or we figure out the chemical compounds of fire and the elements to make the fire, what needs to exist in it, more on a chemistry level. We still need to learn to evolve. So you cannot go wrong with getting into school and pushing forward to that education. So I encourage the new generation to have fun in school, have fun when you learn, have fun. Like, be like the hip hop scientists, be like all of us, be like anyone, but just turn in your homework and your assignments and just walk across that stage and just go. Please do that for yourself. It means a lot to get that education. It does.
And then Mr. Brian, do you want to follow?
Sure, I'll jump in there. So advice I would give, I tend to probably give too much advice. So I have two daughters, right? And I try to pour into them, right? This isn't a hard. It's not hard, but you're gonna have to work. So I tell them a few things. I tell them to watch. I tell them to listen. I tell them to be humble, because learning is a marathon. It's not a sprint, right? Find patience in the process. STEM related jobs are growing exponentially, and yeah, I get it. I'm not going to tell them to follow my path. My path was my path. You got to find your own path, right? I can tell you what I did, and I can show you the results of it. But honestly, in today's environment, you see people. You guys. It might be you. I see people finding success in different ways, right? So if my daughter, my 18-year-old daughter, who's a freshman at FAM, comes back and say, Dad, I gave college a try, but I want to go off and be an esthetician. I want to go off and do something non-traditional off the path that maybe wouldn't have been approved by you. And I'm going to be like, okay, find your path, right? Learn, grow. My path was not your path. It was inbred in us. I think the hip hop scientist said, he was instilled to go to school and get an education. And I want that for my kids. But you can get STEM without college, right? You can get STEM in the real world. You can figure out a path that gets you there. So develop a growth mindset. And what that means is you can't be afraid to make a mistake. I know it's hard to do, but making mistakes for the right reason is growth, right? Use every resource available to you. and learn to be resilient. That's the advice I give.
100%. Totally agree with that. I would say for me, it's okay to be multifaceted and have interests in different things. I think for me, that was one of the things that limited me for so long, because I always felt like I had to be one thing or the other, right? You have to go into this lane or you have to go into this lane, right? And I was always the type that was inquisitive about so many different things. I was curious about different areas, had so many different contrasting interests. And it got to the point where it felt like I was either that it wasn't guiding me to an area that could be successful. And it wasn't until later on, after going in different directions and doing a 180 career wise, and then doing another 180 from that again, where I really found out that there's so many ways to be able to implement your passions to develop the career and the future that you want. Whether you love dance or sports or music or arts, you could still be successful in a STEM field, right? The STEM field isn't just for your stereotypical nerd or someone that's only into tech and design and coding and all these different things. You can have interest into all sorts of different areas. And the unique thing about that is that you bring a unique skill set to those fields. You bring a unique lived experience to those fields that a lot of people that are in those fields may not have, that helps set you apart, that helps you bring so much new knowledge and style and finesse and an understanding and levels of empathy that other people wouldn't have, because they don't have that more well-rounded background and those different experiences. And so don't feel like you have to be confined into a box. And even once you get into your profession, the unique thing now about, especially within the STEM fields, is you're finding people that are combining so many different elements of their STEM fields, right? Somebody may have an interest in biology. Somebody might have an interest in space and technology. Now you got astro-future biologists that are combining all these different elements of all these different STEM fields into one to create all sorts of new professions. And that's really the cool thing about it, is you can fuse your different passions and your interests into creating something that's unique and something that could provide. And I think the more and more that students are aware of that, and the more and more that they can hone into their true self and feel comfortable in talking about what things they love, feel comfortable in talking about sports and science in the same space with the same people, that opens the door so much for the possibilities that are available to them. And so, yeah, it's okay to be multifaceted. It's okay to have different passions and follow those passions when you have an interest in them. Follow them to your fullest extent, and the door is literally wide open for you to be able to have success in whatever you choose.
No, that was really powerful. And I appreciate you all, like, just your perspectives, right? Like the things that you were saying really stuck with me. And I just want to give you all your flowers on like the great things that y'all are doing in the world. Like, y'all are pillars, right? Inspirations, role models for so many people, especially, like young Black kids. And to end us out, I had this quote. It's by Nelson Mandela, and it's actually on education. I'm glad that we touched on that subject. And Nelson Mandela, he said, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. And I think that's one thing you guys are really doing. Like, you took your education, everything you learned, your experiences, your adversity, your hardships, and you're using that to change the world. And another thing you're doing is you're showing, young Black kids that it's possible for them, right? Like one thing I was watching one of your videos, Mr. Menard, and you were on stage and you were talking about, we can only believe in what we see, right? You were talking a lot about representation, like as you were talking, and that's one of the biggest things. Like, you can never, do or achieve what you can never see, because you don't know what's possible for you. And like that's what, I really want to push to anybody who has the pleasure of hearing this conversation. Like, just know your dream is possible for you. Like, no matter where you come from, right? Like, no matter your background, no matter your circumstances, no matter how many obstacles you may have to overcome, no matter how many people doubt you, just know that your dream, like what you're passionate about, you can make it happen, and it's possible for you. But this is STREAMBlack. Like, this is what it's all about. I appreciate, Niamani giving me the opportunity to be a part of this conversation. And thank you all for joining for like this so important conversation. I appreciate you all.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank y'all for having me. And Niamani, wherever you are, thank you so much for having all of us. This is inspiration for me as well.